Welcome to episode number 60 of Merritt in the Morning. Jim, can you believe it?
No.
So he is 30-year state senator Jim Merritt.
He is the executive director, president of the Greater Lawrence Chamber of Commerce.
So, Jim, before we get to our guest today, just so you know, today we're going to be talking tariffs, the price of beef, and why soybean farmers aren't really going broke. So, Jim, you are on the IURC selection committee.
I am.
Are you excited? You guys are meeting this week to...
We're meeting executive session to see who we can interview.
Okay.
And there are so many applicants that we'll have 24 hours, 3 days of 8 hours a day, and we won't be able to get to half of the candidates that have applied. I mean, in years previous, I've been on this commission or this nominating committee for 4 years now, and we were having to encourage people to apply before, and so we've been waylaid with applicants, and so which is a good problem to have, but there are a lot of people that want to serve.
Okay, I call that the Rob Kendall effect. So, hey, we've got sponsors.
Yes, we do.
They actually pay us money.
I hope so.
Even more shocking. We want to thank Stockyards Bank and Trust, locations at 71st and Benford, Carmel, downtown Indianapolis, Plainfield. I've seen this right across the street from Dick's Sporting Goods. It's out towards the airport. They've got a branch. They call it Greenwood. It's at County Line and Emerson by the Ale Emporium down there.
They call it Center Grove.
Center Grove down there at 135, and it could be Bargersville, could be Greenwood, South Greenwood.
Yeah.
They've got one coming to Whitestown also.
Yeah, and they're opening one up at 116th and Michigan Road.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, I took a picture of it the other day. It's just being built. And the Zionsville Road branch is ideally suited right there.
Oh, yeah. Actually, yeah, you're right. That is just inside of Boone County at that intersection. So thank you, Stockyards Bank and Trust. Also, Jim, you know, it's turned to fall a little bit. And what do people's minds go towards?
Hot coffee?
Hot coffee, yes. And ham.
Yes.
It is ham season.
Yes, it is.
Do you know how many times a day the average person thinks about ham?
With me, a lot.
Okay. So that's at least 6, right?
Yeah.
To see scientific data right there. At least 6 times a day, people think about ham. So when you're thinking about ham, check out the Honey Baked Ham Company. Locations at 96 in Michigan and Greyhound Pass in Carmel. Jim, they've got a deal through the end of the year.
Really?
Get on this deal early because it benefits you more if you get on there early. Buy $500 worth of gift certificates to the Honey Baked Ham Company through the end of the year. They will give you an additional $50 worth of gift certificates.
That's fabulous. And, with, tailgating, Thanksgiving, Christmas, holiday parties. I mean, there are so many different ways to celebrate with Honey Baked Ham, a part of it. And when I was there recently,
bar mitzvahs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yes. Drop it off to the Muslim kids, and
Their sweet potato pie is fantastic. So it's more than ham.
It is. So yeah, they're open lunch and dinner. I think they're open till like 6 p.m. every day. So open at 10 or 10:30. So anyhow, stop by, get your gift certificates, and have lunch. Tell them that Merritt in the Morning sent you. So on to our guest. Joining us this week, Damian Mason, agricultural economist, entertainer, professional speaker, movie star, and my friend. And so Damian is pretty much the premier agricultural speaker on the circuit, talks to a lot of trade groups, and has his finger on the pulse.
Mr. Click.
He is.
Mr. Ag Click.
So, Damian, remind me the name of your podcast.
The Business of Agriculture is a show that I've been producing now for 8 years. You're on episode 60. We're on episode 420. It comes out every week on Monday. We're getting more YouTube following now than listens, which is really cool. We're getting like maybe 3,000 listens in the first 7 to 10 days, and we're getting like 10 to 20,000 views. So YouTube is really catching on for us. And I got really good guests from all the network that I have in the Business of Agriculture. So we cover a lot of stuff, all the different corners. It's not markets. It's not, the price of wheat. No, we're talking about big picture stuff, demographics, regulation, new innovation. So it's a really fun time. So go check out the Business of Agriculture. I also produce a show called The Granary, which is shot at my on-farm tavern with my
That's
friends.
really neat. That's almost as great as Kathy Audrey.
Yeah, right.
That's a really wonderful background.
That's right. So we bought the old farm and fixed up the granary and made it into kind of an on-farm tavern. And we said this would be a great place for an agricultural show. So we've been doing that now since a year ago, and that's we've got about 40 episodes released on that one.
Well, Klopp, there are a lot of people that don't think that agriculture has a whole lot of sex appeal, but when you talk about tariffs, you talk about Trump, you talk about beef prices. There is a lot of meat there, a lot of meat on the bone.
There is,
and I'm really glad, Damian, that you're here, because there's a lot of concern out there for meat prices. You go to the grocery, and it's a surprising event when you go to the meat counter and just see how much a steak costs. And can you explain to our audience why beef prices are so high, and are they coming down? What is the whole scenario there?
Well, first off, I appreciate you talking about the sexiness of agriculture and whatnot. Brad Klopfenstein and I met at Purdue in about 1990 and been friends ever since. And so there's that thing. You almost have this stigma. You almost have a little bit of an embarrassment. I'm an ag guy. Oh boy, I'm out here, and I grew up shoveling cow crap and all that kind of thing. But I try to always bring it, because of my background in comedy, to bring the entertainment factor to the dinner table, to then why it matters to you. And that's why when we were setting up for this show, I said, well, what do the people that listen to Merritt in the Morning want to hear? What do they care about? Well, obviously, they're buying hams from Honey Baked Ham, and they're banking there at Stockyard Bank, which obviously has a historic name because Stockyards, obviously. So let's go ahead and, boil this down to why it matters to the person listening to this show. First off, beef is about double what it was price-wise just a few years ago. Now, a lot of things have gone up at the grocery store. We're talking about consumer inflation of at least 40 to 50%. A lot of causes for that. And then before we hit record, you talked about stickiness. Generally, something like beef has, and that's why I always try to help make it simple for those that are like, man, I took an econ class, but I remember all that. We talk about elasticity of demand. And what that means is how much flex there is on your demand for something as the price moves. So don't get overwhelmed by things like widgets and supply curves and all that. Beef, we always thought, had an elasticity that was pretty great, meaning if a cheeseburger is $1, I'll buy it. If it's $2, I'll buy it. If it's $4, maybe I'm not going to buy it, because I can move away from that. I can trade down in the protein sector, as we say. I'll go from steak to burger, burger to pork chops to sausage, sausage to chicken breast to chicken nuggets to spam, spam to peanut butter. That's the protein trade down. And we always thought that beef was one of those things that it was a premium price protein, but once it increased by more than about this much, you would start seeing, if it increased by 10%, you'd see a greater than 10% deduct because of the elasticity. We thought that was the case. And this cycle, and we talk about beef cycles, this one looks different. Now, you've heard that before. The .com thing was supposed to be different and all these other times. But we're eating about 57 pounds of beef per American per year. Probably more for you and me, less for many people. Obviously, the vegans still factor into that. What little bits?
So about a pound a week.
Yeah, right. About a pound a week, which means that if you're, a veg head, you're not eating any. And then if you're us, you eat maybe 2 pounds. But the point is 57 pounds. We've been there for quite a while. 56 to 58 pounds has been where we are. And you'd have thought that a doubling of beef price would mean we go down to 20 pounds. Hasn't happened. When I was in kindergarten, 1975, we ate 95 pounds of beef. So the decline in beef consumption happened way before these prices. It happened in the 80s when we got told if you eat steak, you'll get cholesterol problems and all that. That's not really true, but all of that decline happened. So here we are. And these beef prices appear to be sticky because of supply and the fact that demand has remained up there.
Sticky meaning not coming down.
They're not coming down because the consumer is still buying cheeseburgers and presumably even steaks. Mm-hmm. So, your next question is going to be what's going to change that. But we can get into that in a second.
Okay, then what's going to change that?
Well, a decrease in demand, meaning consumers finally say, I just can't do this. I am going to trade down and eat peanut butter sandwiches now instead of beef barbecue or brisket or whatever, or an increase in supply. And the challenge there is I can ramp up chicken supply pretty easily because a chicken goes from hatchling to butchered in about 45 days. Just think about that. You know, a chicken that you're eating today was probably only hatched 45, 50 days ago if you factor in the processing time.
Or if you're Buffalo Wild Wings, 10.
Yeah, right. So what we're talking about on beef, you've got a 9-month gestation cycle. Cows take as long as women do to have children, from conception to birth. Then you've got the fact that once a calf comes out, it's still 15 to 18 months away from being ready to be butchered, and then it hangs around for 7 days before it goes to the store and all this. So you're talking about a very long time frame. So it takes a couple of years for that whole thing to change. And we've been thinking for the last few years it's going to change. It hasn't. There's some drought that's the reason we haven't beefed up the beef herd. Once you start getting to where there are high prices, they talk about heifer retention. Heifer's a female cow and it hasn't had a calf yet. If you're getting a chance to sell that for $2.50 a pound, and it was just $1 a pound 4 years ago, why would you keep her in breeder? You can just go ahead and put her on grain and put her on the truck to go get butchered. So therefore, she's not having calves 9 months later. So there's a lot of those issues where our supply remains low. There's a thing called the New American screwworm. You may have heard of this. It's a parasite. It's in Mexico. So that is restricting some imports of Mexican beef. And also there's concern that we're going to get that in our Southwest, the states that border that. Probably not going to happen. We have tremendous, with USDA, we got tremendous prevention, just like African swine fever and some of these other things. We are better at it than the rest of the world, generally at keeping parasites and diseases away from us. But this week, they're talking in the ag media in the last 5 days, Trump is talking about bringing in Argentinian beef. Argentina has 2 things to export, 3 things if you count inflation. They have beef and they have soybeans. And it seems that Trump and the administration is hell-bent on saving Javier Milei, the libertarian president, and the economy of Argentina. And in doing that, there's going to be a float of cash to Argentina and probably a purchase of Argentinian beef to come to the United States, which is probably good for the consumer. It brings down beef prices here. It harms the American beef producer because for once, the American beef producer in the last couple of years is making money like they've never made before.
And so there's been a lot of chatter in Washington, D.C. and around the country about tariffs hurting the American farmer, and in doing so, in viewing that, the Trump administration has talked about taking some of that tariff revenue and giving it to the farmers. Is there fire behind that smoke?
There's fire behind that smoke because, first off, there's the political part of it. They'll say, well, Trump's got a big voter base in the farmers. And I say, well, that's cute. But there's only 1 million or 2 farmers. So in a country of 340 million, granted, they do vote and they are active. But the point is, if you got every farmer to vote for you in a national election of 340 million, of which, 150 of them are registered or something like that, isn't really that big of a number. The other part of it is they generally view agriculture as national security. And that's a big thing that some of what the ag lobbies do, Jim, I would disagree with. Going to Washington, D.C. and begging for a bailout every time the rain falls or the rain doesn't fall, it gets to be overdone. But the one thing that I can say as an agricultural person we should always keep in mind is a strong ag sector is a part of national security. We saw what getting held over a barrel did to us in the COVID times when the trade flows were disrupted and all that. And then sometimes you went to the grocery store and there was empty shelves. A lot of people got scared. And so a reliable food supply is a very important part of national security. So should there be some level of federal support? Probably. But the $10 billion they announced is kind of like, oh, you just got your 2 arms chopped off. Here's a Band-Aid. I mean, it's just not enough. It's really not. I mean, the numbers are so great. So if they toss $10 billion, it's enough to create a tremendous amount of political flack and a lot of barbs coming at you. Oh, Trump's throwing $10 billion. But $10 billion just is not going to get where you're talking about. Probably it needs to be 5 times that for the farm sector to be made whole, just because of the cost of inputs. And we can get to that after a bit.
So you or paying attention to our clock. You're watching Merritt in the Morning, episode number 60. I am Brad Klopfenstein. He is Jim Merritt. Jim, what do?
We work hard and we are nice.
Live it, learn it, love it.
Yeah.
So we want to thank our sponsors, the Honey Baked Ham Company, locations at 96 in Michigan, Greyhound Pass and Carmel. Jim, $500 in gift certificates purchased from now through the end of the year. So you've got 2.5 months to take advantage of this.
So generosity.
You get $50 additional on your purchase.
What a deal.
It is a heck of a deal. So take advantage of it. Stop by, have lunch, grab dinner. They've got all the sides, everything you would ever need, and they've got more than just ham.
And the people behind the register are so nice.
They are.
They really.
Sometimes it's the Kalb family that owns those, and oftentimes it's a Kalb that will help you.
Yes.
So check them out. Also, we want to thank Stockyards Bank and Trust, locations all over Central Indiana, 71st in Binford, Carmel, downtown Indianapolis, Plainfield, Greenwood, Center Grove, coming to Whitestown, coming to Zionsville. And also, if you're down in the Louisville, Southern Indiana area, they're all over down there as well.
Yeah, certainly.
So thank you to our sponsors. Now back to Damian Mason.
What are we going with next?
So let's talk about...
Making me hungry for ham.
Yes. Let's talk about soybean farmers going broke, commodity prices, and China has a decreasing population. We always hear about China and their demand and how much they impact things. Are they that big of a player, or are these scare tactics?
So we're sitting here in Central Indiana, and we just heard about your banks and your Stockyard Bank, and we heard about the ham company and all that. And why do I care about the soybean situation? Well, agriculture is a pretty big contributor to a lot of states, where we are here in the Midwest. And there's been a very common thing in the last 2 weeks. Every major media outlet dispatched one of their reporters, and it becomes almost an absolute formulaic script. You bring out the woman and put her in a hat so she looks like she's being on the farm, and then put her in a piece of farm machinery that costs $900,000 and drive her out and say, so I understand you're not making any money, and it's because of Trump's tariffs. And that's become the thing here in the last 2 weeks. And this is not a political show right here. I can just tell you that I finally had to put something out on my own media and say, there is problems in the income statements of farms right now in the United States of America. And no, it is not because of tariffs. And that just blows people's minds because they've been told that by all the major media outlets for the last month. Okay, tariffs do not help. Tariffs are a distortion to the marketplace. Tariffs are kind of like minimum wage laws or price floors or rent ceilings and all these kinds of things. They seek to distort where the crossing of supply and demand come together and create an equilibrium point, which is the market price. So they are a distortion to the marketplace. Good IU guy like you probably know that. Kind of like paying your coach $11.5 million to stand on the sidelines and watch the professional players play football. Is it really necessary? That's a different story. I'm sorry. That was just a dig on IU football. But anyway.
Well, tell our audience, why are soybeans so important to families and the economy?
Okay, so right now the big story has been, and the media doesn't know, so they say soybean farmers. Well, there's really not a soybean farmer. Generally, in this part of the world, you farm a rotation of corn and soybeans, and or maybe factor in some wheat or what have you. So nobody's just generally a soybean farmer. So that's kind of just the typical media. But the other part of that is soybeans are being sold right now below the cost of production. And this has actually been a while coming. This is why I'm pointing out, it's not because of tariffs. It was that way last year also. There was enough farm equity hanging around that the farms were better insulated. And what that means is they generally had low debt and they had a lot of paid for real estate. And so they could take a little bit of a price a loss on soybeans. So we heard this in 2023, 2 years ago, before the tools were even put away in the sheds. We heard that going into 2024, there's going to be a 40% reduction in farm income. We heard that. It was pretty well played ahead of time. We knew that was going to happen going into 2024. So I was recording stuff with my farmers and saying, if you are looking at a 40% deduct, where are you going to start skinnying things down? So because 2021, 2, and 3 were the record farm income years that we've ever had in the history of American agriculture since the revolution, the biggest 3 years in both nominal and real dollars. That means inflation adjusted, biggest 3 years ever. So it was reasonable you'd come down from there. The problem is we came down again from that. and the cost of production has remained up. So inflation, just like at the grocery store, just like on those steaks, or just like on the consumer goods you go and buy. Let's face it, you buy a bar of soap, it's more expensive by probably 40% than it was 5 years ago. Same thing for all the stuff I need to produce my crops. My fertilizers are way up, my insurances are way up, my machinery, even my diesel fuel,
overhead,
cost of labor. So inflation on all of the things it takes to produce crops is a much larger problem than tariffs, because the reality is, what the media didn't tell you, China put a 20% tariff on our soybeans, but they weren't buying them anyhow. For political reasons, they probably should have said 200% tariff just to get the news media going, because they weren't going to buy American soybeans anyhow. Why? They don't have to. The globe is glutted in soybeans. Brazil is producing 57% more soybeans today on 42% more acres today than they did a decade ago. So Brazil has purposefully been brought along by China to be their new supplier, because what can China do to Brazil they can't to the United States? Control them. Mm-hmm. So the globe is literally awash in soybeans. And that's why the prices are where they are. Again, supply against basically it's record demand, but it's against way record supply.
And for our shoppers that go to the grocery, why are the price of soybeans, or the glut of soybeans, why is that important to the shopper? What is
to the shopper it should be a good thing, because if there's so many soybeans, it means my food is cheap.
Low prices.
The problem is soybeans, let's say, go into chicken through soybean meal.
What is the application of soybean?
Sure. Soybean meal goes into an animal livestock feed. So you're saying that's good. That should bring down the price of beef. But I just told you, not when there's so few beef cows. You've got shortage of beef, but surplus of soybeans. So even if the soybeans were free, but there's no cows, you're still going to have the price thing. So it's not coming through as cheaper prices to the consumer, only because that is one ingredient among all of them that is low in price, when everything else, from labor to electricity, transportation costs, everything else is elevated. So the soybean unit price is a small factor of the grocery price. Makes sense, right?
So I want to talk a little bit about farm acreage and the pressure on those acres. Obviously, farm ground prices are through the roof right now. But I know that you and I have talked before that you think that probably 20% of the ground that's currently being farmed is unnecessary. So obviously there's data centers that are wanting to gobble up farm ground. You've got solar farms, wind farms.
Suburbia.
What's that?
Suburbia.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, homes.
We allegedly are still short on homes in the United States of America. Yeah.
And then you've got outside investment in farm ground, just because farm ground typically has gone up at a reasonable rate. What is the state of acreage right now in the farming community?
So we farm about 380 million acres in the United States of America. To put that in perspective, there's about 900 million to a billion privately owned farm acres, but those that are cultivated, meaning many of them are grazed, those that are cultivated for all the stuff we talk about. Corn and soybeans take up almost half of those acres. Wheat is another 40 million of those, 50 million of those acres. Grain, sorghum, rice, cotton, etc. So even the trees and the specialty fruits and vegetables are part of that 380 million acres. What we did 40 years ago, we took out pushing 30 million, 25 to 30 million, and put it into a conservation reserve program. And that was for conservation, to protect the waterways. And basically your tax dollars paid a farm landowner for a 10 or a 15-year contract to not farm that land, to put it into trees or prairie grass or something like that. And it helped and conservation, but it also removed those acres, because in the 1980s, we did not need more supply. We're in that same situation now. The pace of productivity has outpaced that of demand. China was the big juggernaut in the last 25 years. You took 1.4 billion people that doubled their caloric consumption, literally doubled their caloric consumption. Well, that takes a lot of production from a lot of places on Earth to feed 1.4 billion people, double the amount of food every day. So that's what happened, and why we then had a run-up. But we were exactly in the same place 40 years ago in the mid-'80s with the farm crisis. Low prices because of oversupply, because our productive capacity was so great and we had stagnating demand. We're there again. A lot of people don't know their history, and they're maybe not quite as old as us, and they didn't study agricultural economics, and they weren't raised on a farm like me, so they don't know that. But we've been here before. The thing that agriculture would love would be another China. And I can argue that it's not going to happen. And that's the tough part.
So where does India stand in all
India is roughly the same number of people, 1.3 to 1.4 billion people, and they have an ascending economy like China. Couple of problems with India. They seem to be, well, they don't have a control economy, authoritarian, communist. When China says we're going to do this, it's pretty much they do this. Not so much in India. India tends to be more difficult to deal with, and India has more of a protection of their own agricultural system.
Of their own system, period.
Of their own system, period. Yeah. So can India become the next China? There's a lot of hope for that, and I don't see it happening because of some political reasons and because of the fact that they're not on the same ascension path economically. China was talking about a growth of their economy by like 12% a year. That puts a lot more food dollars in the hands of consumers to eat more food. India's growing a couple percent a year. So I think it's going to be a tough one. There's another one, talk about the beef thing. Like 2/3 of Indians are vegetarian. So they'll buy garbanzo beans from Alberta, but they won't buy Alberta beef. They'll buy pulse crops and lentils from Montana, but they will not buy Montana beef. So you got a country that's 1.3, 1.4 billion, but 2/3 of them don't eat meat. Not to mention, you've got the Muslim, and you got some of the different religions that they're not pork customers, they're not beef customers. Okay, we'll sell you all the lentils that we can make in Montana. That ain't going to change the economics of United States agriculture very quickly.
So pull out your crystal ball. 5 years from now, what's the state of agriculture?
5 years from now, there will be less acres farmed in the United States of America, meaning marginal acres will go away because we don't need them. In areas that have hot development, call it the Eastern Corn Belt, like Indiana and Ohio, some of those acres, unfortunately, get gobbled up, like we saw up here in Lebanon, Indiana, for development, data centers, Amazon warehouses, whatever that should be. And if I was in Eastern Colorado, where I got 4 inches of annual precipitation and was farming ground that just doesn't have a lot of return, I might start realizing that in this commodity environment, those acres aren't needed. If you're environmentally sensitive because it requires a lot of pumping out of aquifers, you're probably going to have pressure on you to not farm those acres. So I think that there will be acres that go away. I believe there'll probably be some conservation program monies that come about, kind of like the CRP thing we did 40 years ago. Brazil is on a warpath to continue to grow production. They've got more acres to bring into production that are currently still just like grazing lands. And China, as long as China can remain in control of that, they want to use South America as their provider, which means they want it to be so that they're not helping the United States. So the China miracle is over, and the China as our customer is over, and that's been something for a long time. China put together the Belt and Road Initiative 2013. They announced they're going to spend literally billions of dollars all over the globe putting in rail and ports. So that thing's changed. So we're going to change, and we're going to focus more on our domestic consumption.
How has the Russian-Ukrainian war impacted farming globally?
It's impacted production somewhat because Ukraine's a huge producer, but there is still production happening there. So let's just say that they took away the equivalent of Iowa's production. On a global scale, Iowa's pretty damn important, but on a global scale, if you took away that, not enough to change. And here's the thing. Other places ramp up. Oh, there's a distortion over there. There's going to be a problem with that. I'm just going to really go over here and produce more. And that's usually what has happened. Distorted some trade more than anything.
And what's the major crop?
Ukraine grow a lot of wheat, wheat.
Yeah, and Russia.
Wheat. Russia's the world's biggest wheat producer.
Yeah, and I thought Ukraine was like 6th or something.
Yeah, so
something really surprising.
Right. And they grow corn and soy as well. And then also a big one coming out of there is sunflower. So the oil crops. So if you were in the Middle East, you might have relied on Ukraine oil crops. Maybe it's canola or sunflower or whatever. So now you're paying a lot to fry your food in Morocco.
Offers some pressure.
So, Damian, here in our last minute or so, how can people get in touch with you and tell them about all the channels you are available on.
Sure, right.
Where can they find you?
Go to DamianMason.com. That's my website. You can find me on YouTube. That's a growth thing right now. Go to YouTube, just type in Damian Mason, hit subscribe. It doesn't cost anything. I'm on social media. I'm on X, which is Twitter, or Twitter, which is X. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. And then also you can find me at Extreme Ag. Extreme Ag's my farm guys. I shoot a lot of stuff for them and create content that's educational for producers in agriculture. And then my show, The Granary, which happens at your favorite building at my farm. It's my on-farm tavern where we get together with ag people and talk about everything from the personal to the professional to where things are going in this industry.
Jim, we need to have a road trip and do a combined Granary and Merritt in the Morning episode.
That'd be fun. It'd be a good time. Yeah. We've done 6 of these without doing that. We need to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
60
agree.
shows.
You do one at the Granary. It'd be a little different look. And you can say, here we are. I don't know, man.
I'll wear blue jeans.
Well, you can wear, as long as you wear pants, period, you're fine. And also, we
I
generally
generally wear pants.
we generally only shoot from about
Well,
here
I
up.
don't wear pants then.
Yeah, optional. Pants optional.
So I appreciate you guys talking to me about agriculture. You guys have me on here. And I think the big thing is you said, why does it matter? Some of the stuff is so confusing, and the consumer catches a 3-minute news story, and it's just not accurate sometimes. And then they are confused, and they also are like, well, that's why if the farmers are going broke, then why is food still so high? And I think that's the most important part. We talk a lot about this in agriculture. About 14 cents of the dollar you spend at the grocery store is the product, meaning to the farm.
Right.
Just because, and the farmers always lament that. Oh, well, the farmers only get 14 cents. Like, yeah, well, the middleman's making all the money. The middleman is about 11 processes. It's transportation. It's packaging. It's the processing and taking anything to where it's now a usable product and then hauling it somewhere, and then the shelving and the electricity, and not to mention, look at the price of labor. So that's the thing. So it's unfortunate that you're still going to see elevated grocery prices that are sticky for the consumer, and it's not because of what's happening at the farm gate.
So, Damian, thank you very much for coming on and joining us. You've been watching episode number 60 of Merritt in the Morning. Again, we want to thank the Honey Baked Ham Company, locations at 96 in Michigan, Crayon Pass, and Carmel. Don't forget, buy $500 in gift certificates, get $50 free. That deal starts right now, so you don't have to wait till the holidays. Get in there. We can all consume $500 worth of Honey Baked Ham.
Lots of tailgates.
That's a lot of tailgates. It's got Thanksgiving. You could take advantage of that deal 2 or 3 times over.
I bet so.
So thank you to them. Thank you to Stockyards Bank and Trust, locations all over central Indiana and coming more to the north side and northwest side. Appreciate them. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time.
1, 2, 3, 4.